Welcome to the 300 subscriber Mondo Super Spectacular Q&A session. Okay, everybody, you all know that whenever I hit a milestone amount of subscribers, 100, 200, 300, whatever it is, it's fun to get together and have a little Q&A session where I answer some of your questions, and more importantly, you guys talk about the stuff in the bottom below, and conversations take place, and it's really fun, and it's awesome. And that's really the whole point of doing it. Before I go any further, I'd like to say thanks to everybody that subscribed. It means the world that you enjoy the channel. I really, really appreciate it. Thanks to everybody that's a loyal watcher. You know who you guys are. I talk to you all the time. And thanks to everybody who dropped a question. You guys know I do this just for the fun of it and just for the love of the subject matter. I do not monetize this channel. I will never monetize this channel. I'll always be the same guy swearing and talking from the hip, as I always do, about the movies that we remember and we love and maybe that other people should check out. So that's the whole mission here. That's what I do. That's why we're doing this Q&A. Thanks for the 300 people that liked the channel, subscribed to the channel. Let's get rolling. Okay, first up, Ring Rants asks, can you cover early 2000s Marvel movies like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man Trilogy? Ring Rants is my friend Tim. Really, really great guy. One of the coolest dudes you'll ever meet on the planet. He has a little channel devoted to wrestling, all that kind of stuff. So, Timmy, on this channel, I originally started out with the rule that I would never do anything after the year 2000, because this is really devoted to the, I guess, old-time motion pictures and the old-time Hollywood. But being that everything is like 20 years old now from the year 2000, and to me that might seem like yesterday, but to somebody who's like 30, it might be like 20 years ago I was 10, and you know, these are old movies. So there's been a couple times I've wandered from that. There was a couple movies I did that were like 2000, 2001, 2002-ish, something like that. And now that movies are 20 years old or older, I guess I can go back and maybe look at a 2000 or a 2001 or maybe in a couple of months of 2002, just because it's been a couple of decades. It's been a long time. And we can go back and look at things like that. So I have to go back and see how old the Sam Raimi Spider-Man flicks are. As you know, to me, I think they're the best little run of the Spider-Man series compared to what they're doing now and all that, although I haven't seen the newest Spider-Man, so I don't want to comment on that one. But I really, really, really think that maybe I can do like 2001, 2002, and whatever falls into that genre. So I'll take a look, and if it falls into that time zone, we'll throw them out there. Okay, for my boy John Runyon, who's been watching this channel forever and always has comments on everything, thank you so much for the support. It means a lot. Okay, I know we covered this before, but who are your very favorite actors? And you stated, half of mine are in here, yours were Clint Eastwood, Brando, James Dean, Fonda, Henry that is, Kurt Russell, and Jeff Bridges, and De Niro, and Hoffman, and John Wayne, cool, Lee Marvin, Robert Mitchum, Steve McQueen, Bogart, James Caan, all those. I'm gonna nail mine down to just like a group of like, a smaller group than that, just so I can do them off the top of my head. But we all know my favorite is Kurt Russell. That's just, Kurt Russell's my favorite actor. He does comedy, he does drama, he does action, he does everything. And he does it believable, and he does it with a skill that you're like, well, this guy's only a comedy guy. Or this guy's only an action guy. Or this guy's only a drama guy. Because he does them all, he does them well. Kurt Russell's my favorite of all time. After that, I would have to say probably like Eastwood, because Eastwood is just Eastwood. Let's face reality. Everybody loves Clint Eastwood. It's just the way it goes. To me, he's the man, the myth, the legend that he is. Always loved Clint Eastwood. After that, if we're getting like a little bit more modern day, if you can even say that, because he's been around for like 30 years now himself, but somebody like a Ralph Fiennes. I think the guy's just an amazing actor, whether it was in something like Strange Days, or whatever he's in. It's just, he's a guy he's a chameleon. He can play any role, he can do anything, and I really appreciate actors like that. That's one of the things that really is kind of like a caveat with me. If they're going to be at the top of the list, they got to usually be diverse. Well, maybe not so much Eastwood, but they got to be diverse, and they got to be able to carry certain weight in each ground of acting. And that's why, if you look at the female actors that I love, we're talking about people like Jennifer Jason Leigh. I just think she's amazing, because I've seen her play everything of every type, of every sort. She doesn't have a limit where she says, I'm not going to go there. It's not like a Sandra Bullock or somebody like that. Well, I lied, but whatever. She really takes chances. She dives out into the deep end of the pool, and she will play any kind of role, and she does it well. Same thing goes with like a Juliette Lewis. Juliette Lewis is the same way. She will go out there and she will take on a comedy role, a drama role, a role where she's playing the super innocent sister next door, or where she's playing the half-naked, run-around bimbo type. Whatever it is, she covers that ground, and I think she's amazing at it. So I think she's one of the unsung heroes of today that really even deserves more recognition than what she gets. And then after that, I think are actors that are my favorites that really should have even been bigger than what they were, even if they were kind of big. You know what I mean? I don't understand how, like, Rutger Hauer wasn't bigger than he was. And I know, Rutger Hauer's Rutger Hauer. Come on, he's a legend. He's all this other kind of stuff. But him being the lead in movies never really took off like it could have or it should have. You know what I mean? Yeah, Wanted, Dead or Alive or whatever. Okay. But really, he should have had a bigger career and it should have been larger. And then there's people like Lance Henriksen or Harry Dean Stanton. People like those. Guys that are actors that you can sit there watching the movie and say, well, I can't imagine this movie with anybody else playing that part. Even if the part might not be a part that's the big cliffhanger, juggernaut role that everybody wants to play. It's one of those things. There's certain actors that I think were so good and were always popping up in things because they were good, but never hit that, like, Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, Al Pacino type level where it was just like, oh my God, we got to run out and see the movie because he's in it. Nobody ever said that about a Lance Henriksen flick, or nobody ever said that about a Harry Dean Stanton flick. But put them in those roles, and you know the way that they deliver. You know the jobs that they did. Okay, next question from John Runyon is, I am sure you like director John Carpenter. I've stated a million times he's my favorite. His earlier career, 77 to like 92. I'm pretty sure you are a fan of Walter Hill. Yes, I am. What other directors do you appreciate? Thanks. And you listed some of yours, from David Lynch, Carpenter, Kazan, nice, that's different. Leone, Eastwood, Peckinpah, Scorsese, Hitchcock, Ford. There's some good people on here, and some of us are going to overlap on this. Okay, we all know I'm a Carpenter freak. It is the way it is. When it comes to other directors, there are groups that I like. I love, and I know it's going to sound cliche, I love early Steven Spielberg movies. I just think that he was on it. The way he framed a shot, the way he told the story in his early movies, whether it was Duel, whether it was Jaws, whether it was Close Encounters, I just think he was great. I think as time went on, he kind of wavered a little bit and got a little bit carried away with trick shots and goofy shit, but for a time in his career, he was amazing. I love Sam Peckinpah. I am a huge Sam Peckinpah fan. I mean, just the way he does a scene, the way he does action with a lot of the slow motion, the way he frames a shot. When I think Americana in a motion picture, when I say this guy captured Americana, a lot of people will think, well, they'll go back in time, they'll look at some of the other directors from Westerns and stuff like that. But for me, Peckinpah, when I see a scene right out of The Killer Elites, or I see a scene out of Convoy, or I see those, or my God, The Getaway, I sit there and I say to myself, that's America. That's Americana right there. The way he frames that shot, the way he shows the landscape, the way he encapsulates the everyday man, even if they're not in an everyday man situation. I love the way he shoots a film. I love the way his movies look. It's just the way it goes. I also love, obviously, Clint Eastwood. It's hard to differentiate. A lot of people like Eastwood, the icon, the actor, but as a director, if you took out everything else he has ever done, he is amazing as a director. I mean, literally the list of motion pictures we could rattle off, I'm not even going to waste my time with, but if you only took 4 or 5 of them, from Unforgiven itself to some of his other stuff, I mean, it's just amazing. He knows how to tell a motion picture story simply and concisely, and that's the thing that I like about all the directors that you will see me pick. Maybe they changed their style as years went on. Maybe they threw in a couple slow motion scenes. But a director that can tell a story simply, directly, and to the point. And remember, telling the story is the main objective, not doing some grandiose beauty shot, not langering off about their skills and how crazy with the cinematography they can get, or let the cinematographer get on his own. I like somebody that just tells me the story without pulling me out of the motion picture to show me their director's skill, or to show me how pretty and much they can beautify a certain scene. The only scene I ever seen that was like that actually floated with me was in the original Star Trek the Motion Picture, Robert Wise did. And he did that ridiculous amount of time spent on the outside of the Enterprise with the music and the beauty shots and just almost showing off. But there it was appropriate because everybody was waiting to see the Enterprise. It meant so much to them. The ship was a character that we loved and was gone for so long that you didn't mind when he fawned over it. But when a director does a trick shot, like, say, Spielberg did in War of the Worlds, where the camera's shooting around angles from the van and all that, nothing loses me quicker, nothing pulls me out of the motion picture quicker, and I can't stand shit like that, to be brutally honest. So, as we know, Carpenter, Eastwood, Peckinpah, and I guess I should also give a shout out to two people that I really, really, really like too. We're talking Ridley Scott. Yes, he sometimes does get on the beauty shots. And Jim Cameron, who, yes, he doesn't work as much as he used to, but it is what it is. I mean, come on, the Terminator flicks. Even The Abyss, which some people ended, but I thought was amazing. I mean, you're talking about Aliens. You're talking about some stuff. I just think he's an amazing director. And, you know, there's other directors out there too that I think are really, really, really good. But those are the ones that kind of pop into my head off the top. Okay, next question from Lloyd Pretty Boy, who I always call LPB for short. Good list of shit right here. Let's do this. Would you think the last Bond after they killed off Bond and they want female Bond? I think it's ridiculous. I have no interest in seeing it. Well, I couldn't agree more. And I haven't seen it. I have really soured, and that's one of the reasons why I don't deal with modern Hollywood. I think they've just gone apeshit insane. Is when they take classic franchises and they feel that in the name of some political correctness or some kind of shit like that, they have to either change the franchise or destroy the franchise or take out the lead character of the franchise. I just think it's ridiculous and it's stupid. And honestly, let's be real. The last few years, anybody would say to themselves, okay, James Bond, European guy, out there schmoozing and wowing all these women in action flicks, iconic character that now some people are going to say, he's sexist, he's this, he's that. They're going to do something to this guy. You were waiting for it. And basically they went ahead and did. To kill off James Bond is about as sacrilegious as you can get. If you're tired of the franchise, or you don't think it's bringing in the cash for a while, don't make a James Bond movie for a while. Let it go away for a while. Bring it back. Reintroduce it. You can tweak a thing here. You can turn a thing there, which almost they did a little bit in the whole Daniel Craig series, where he was a much more grittier and dirtier Bond, and, you know, sleeping with every hot chick on planet Earth wasn't really the necessity at the top of his list, or whatever at the top of his list. You know what I mean? So they adjusted the character a little bit, made him a little bit more, I don't know, Jason Bourne-ish, if you will. But you got it, and they did what they did. But to kill the character off, to me, is just insulting, and it's ridiculous. And I didn't see any reason for it, and you knew it was coming. Don't go into franchises and just shit all over them in the name of being woke or whatever the hell that they're doing. I don't see any purpose in it. I don't see any point in it. If you make a great character, people will come. It's like Field of Dreams. If you make a great character, people will come. I went and seen all the Alien movies. I didn't see them because Ripley was a female. I seen them because Ripley was a great fucking character, and that's all you cared about. That's all that mattered. It was a great character. She was a woman. Who cares? Let's go watch Ripley kick some ass. It's going to be great. That's all that you cared about, and that was the point. Same thing whether it was the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo movie or the early ones or whatever goddamn flick it was, Gloria. I don't care what it was. You make a great character, people will show up. And it's the same thing with diversity of cultures and races or whatever the hell's going on. I went and seen all the Blade flicks. Not because Wesley Snipes is a minority. I went and seen him because it's a great character and he's fucking awesome in that role. That's why I went and seen it, not because it met a quota or some stupid shit like that. So I can't stand when they do this kind of stuff. Make great characters, find great actors, put them in great roles. I don't care what the goddamn criteria is. I don't care if somebody's straight, gay, white, black. It doesn't mean anything, male, female. It doesn't mean shit to me. But do it because the character is great. Don't do it because you're pandering and hitting a quota and thinking you can look at people and say, oh, aren't I woke? Oh, aren't I enlightened? And then remove those characters from your billboards when you show them in China. Yeah, Hollywood, that's you. Whew. Now that that's done, are you going to do a James Bond rank and Dirty Harry rank someday? You know, I think I did a Dirty Harry rank in a QA someplace else before. I can't remember it, but I can make a whole video of it. I don't care. A special edition one day. Why not? Have some fun. You know I'm all about the Dirty Harry flicks, and I love them. And that's at least a series of motion pictures that I can really get down and just break them down in 2 seconds. James Bond, that's a lot of movies. I think you're 25 deep at that point or something like that. And some of them I'd have to really go back and refresh myself on because it's been so long. You know, I love some James Bond movies. Other James Bond movies I think are a little bit boring. Others I thought were just friggin' preposterous. But as a whole, I like the James Bond franchise. I like the James Bond character and all that kind of shit. So I could do that, but man, that would be a hell of a video. Number 3, what do you think of the last Halloween sequels? To me, they were hit and miss. I just went and seen them. Me and my son and friend Tim, that asked a question earlier, had a great time. Hanging out with the boys is the shit. I think that they got the look of the mask right, which I thought was great that they did that. The music is pretty cool. And the directing style that they're doing, I actually like way more than the other sequels, you know, minus the third. But I like the directing style. I like the way that they frame the shots and they do everything. I have no problem with that. The problem that I've had with the last couple motion pictures is I just think that they've deviated so far away from who and what Michael Myers is that it gets to be a little bit, Now, Michael Myers was always a character that kind of stalked and hid behind trees and ducked behind cars and did all this other stuff. And in the last couple movies, he's just this crazed powerhouse that walks around from one house to another just whacking people left and right. And he doesn't really seem to have an objective in mind. He's just killing everything that he sees. And that usually to me is a letdown. You know, you see a lot of these people talk about things like, oh, the kill count, the kill count, the kill count. I don't care about the kill count. He didn't kill that many people in the first Halloween, to be brutally honest. You know what I'm talking about? But you remember it, and it made an impact, and the character was something. In the new ones, he just, you know, he kills 22 people, and you see how he did this one, you see what that one. I shy away from that because the kill count is not what matters to me. It's the suspense, it's the drama, it's the terror. And if you replace that with the kill count, it can get a little bit funky. And I think they got crazy on the last one. I mean, there was parts of it, again, that looked cool and all that kind of shit. But then there was parts of it, like, you know, the whole town freaking out and mowing over doctors to go out in this crazed mob and stuff. And again, you know, in the first Halloween from 2018, all the male characters looking like idiots. There's problems that I have with it. Again, the look is cool. The mask is cool. The directing style is cool. The storylines, sometimes they get a little bit weird. Okay, number 5. Do you believe in racism against Asians in Hollywood? Bruce Lee had that problem and Jackie Chan too. That's a real tough question because whenever you answer questions of racism or cultural diversity or whatever it is, you have to always keep them in the time that they took place. Now, was there things in old Hollywood that could be seen as being done that were either racist or culturally insensitive? Yeah, obviously, of course. You know what I mean? You go back and look at some of the cartoons they put out in World War II. There was some pretty brutal things taking place. So was there things that they had to deal with that people might not have to deal with today? Sure. But by the time even they came up and around and were in the system, things were a little bit different, I think. I think it was less about Hollywood being racist towards them, more about Hollywood just playing to its audience. Let's face reality. The United States, by and large, especially still at that time, was more of an Anglo-Saxon, European descent. And your culture was predominantly like 70% Caucasian or in that ballpark, if not more. So you're going to play and get actors that feed or represent or look reminiscent of that group of people. If you go to China right now, the Chinese film industry isn't pumping out motion pictures with a bunch of white guys from Europe or Nigerian guys from Africa. They're picking out Chinese stars. Now, all that being said, the problem with Hollywood today is that Hollywood has become a very political place. I mean, very political. And the results of that is that you start to see the world through very political eyes. And if the policies and politics that you believe in sees the world in very defining ways, black and white, male or female, straight or gay, that is the de facto line of thinking that they fall back on whenever anything comes up, whether it's a motion picture or whether it's a remake, something of that nature. Let me explain. Somebody like a Chow Yun-fat should have been one of the biggest stars around, period. He had the talent, he had the look, he had the skill, he had everything. The guy was a total package. There's no reason he couldn't have been one of the biggest stars in America. And I mean, not movies like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, or The Replacement Killers, but I mean in movies where he's like the head of a firm and he falls in love with Sandra Bullock and the whole thing. But it just never took off. And I think part of that is because when movie roles would come up, Hollywood, instead of saying, who's the best guy, who's the best girl, who's the best actor for the role, they would fall into that de facto thinking of like, well, you know, instead of a white guy, how can we get a black guy? Or instead of a male, how can we get a female? Or how, instead of somebody straight, can we have a gay character? And when you do that, instead of seeing people as people, and instead of seeing people for who they are or their skill level in the role or what they bring to it, you start to see people only as that line of political de facto thinking. You start to see only race. You start to see only gender. You start to see only sexual preference. And that is what Hollywood has really turned into now. That's why every time there's a reboot of something, it's like get rid of the men, bring in the women, that kind of thing. And it permeates everything in Hollywood today. And because of that, I do think, truly, that a lot of the Asian community has, by and large, been forgotten or left out. It's very easy, I think, in the world for people to morph into the very things that they say that they hate. And I think it's also very easy in the world for people to cloak themselves in righteousness, hiding who they really are. And that's all I can say about that. Number 6, who's your favorite movie villain? Or a bunch of them? Ooh, man. We're going to have a little bit of fun. Okay, I love Khan Noonien Singh from Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. I think that was brilliant writing. It was phenomenal acting. And you've seen a villain that was multi-layered. This guy that was raging with anger, but you always tried to see like he was in control. A man that was filled with rage for what he justly believed he was wronged on, the death of his wife. So, it's always better when a villain kind of has a point of view. You know what I mean? If he's just some raving fucking lunatic, you know, it is one thing. But it's always more interesting when they have multi-layers. And Khan Noonien Singh from Star Trek II was one of those characters. Another character was Roy Batty from Blade Runner. You're like, this guy's faced with his own mortality. He's watching his people die. He's been almost driven mad by this, and all he wants to do is live. Is he a bad guy? He's done some questionable things. He's done some bad shit. But is he technically a bad guy? So it's one of those kind of things. That's another great character. That is another great villain. And of course you got legendary stuff like, you know, Michael Myers, who was just this faceless, senseless, emotionless killing machine. It didn't have any of the qualities that I just mentioned, but it was more of a mystery, more of a, what the hell is going on here? Why is this guy doing this? What is taking place in this thing's mind? And it moved it to the supernatural. So you have that angle, and Michael Myers is a legend for that. Then I love characters like the characters that know something or present themselves as knowing something that you don't, so they're always a few steps ahead. The John Ryder character from The Hitcher was like that. I mean, this guy was just evil, but he had an underpinning of wanting himself to be stopped. But he always had this devil-may-cry little look in his eye, this little smirk, this almost childlike innocence as he's doing bad things, horrific things, actually. And he seems like he knows where he's going to be a few minutes ahead of everybody else. And that made the character just brilliant and made the character great. And, once again, Rutger Hauer, how can you not love that? Also, you got characters like, I don't even know if you call him a bad guy, but Brando, Apocalypse Now, Kurtz. You know, when you see these characters, they're bad people, they're doing bad things, but they're so emotionally and psychologically destroyed that you're like, this fucking guy's evil. But there's a reason that this took place, and there's a reason it happened, and this person who knows they're nuts has gone nuts and everything. So it adds another dimension to the bad guy of a motion picture, and I think he was one of the all-time great studies in an archetype of how do you play a villain that's a villain and scary and terrifying, yet always comes across as calm and never raises his voice, but can scare the shit out of you just by seeing his silhouette. I mean, that was some brilliant shit. All right, on to number 7. What do you prefer, the car from 77 or Christine from 83? And why? I'm actually going to tell you something that might shock people because I'm a huge John Carpenter fanatic. And I actually like Christine. I think it was a pretty good movie. I prefer the car from 77. It just had a different vibe. It had a different tone. It felt a little bit more down and dirty. It felt a little bit more mysterious. It felt a little bit less romanticized. And there will be always a part of me that with Christine, I felt like that wasn't Carpenter doing Carpenter. That was Carpenter doing Stephen King and trying to make that story work. And he did a good job. And it's a good motion picture. But, you know, Arnie Cunningham was almost too nerdy and too stupid. And his jock buddy was almost too good of a friend. And everything was kind of that kind of a thing. We were just like, oh, all right, okay, the kids are all cartoon characters. I get it. You know, it's like right out of the fucking Archies or something. I get it. You know what I mean? But it was what it was. Now you take a motion picture like The Car that was almost just dark. It was almost much grittier. It was much more without apology. So I always loved The Car. And plus the great, beautiful scenery in the desert, I just thought looked amazing. I just thought that they played it much more close to the bone. And I just appreciated it a little bit more. And lastly, number 8. I would love to know why almost movie is over 2... Well, almost every movie is over 2 hours now. That's no shit neither. Or 3 hours, and most of it is boring. What's your thoughts? Well, it's kind of tricky. Because I've seen so many movies that were 2 or 3 hour movies that just seemed to fly by. I mean, Titanic went by quick. Girl with the Dragon Tattoo was fairly long. Seemed to go by fairly well. There's been some movies that just it didn't make you feel like you were seeing something as long as you were seeing it. But then again, there's other ones. Hell, you can watch a 90-minute movie that's a fucking horror show that makes you feel like you've been in your seat for 4 hours. But there are certain movies, certain lately big franchise flicks, whether it's Avengers movies or whether it's a Godzilla King Kong thing or something like that, where you're like, Jesus, how are they gonna stretch this thing? It's just like a 2 hour and 30-minute runtime on this thing. What is in here that's going to be that interesting for that long? And sometimes you're sitting there and you're like, okay, they could have cut at least 25 minutes of this motion picture out. They didn't need to do all this. They didn't do it. So I see your point. I think that they're just trying to a lot of times make everything the spectacle. So if it's a big movie and there's big monsters or there's big superheroes or there's big special effects, well, then they think it should have a big runtime and make it seem more epic. You know what I mean? Like this is somehow Lawrence of Arabia if you're going to go watch a bunch of robots that turn into cars and you know, it is what it is. Some of it, I don't mind it if it's done well. Like, perfect example, you can watch some of the James Bond flicks. There's ones that were like 2 hours and change that just flew by. And then there's been a couple recently where there's like 2 hours and change and you're like, what the hell is going on? So it's all in the presentation. As long as it's vital to the story to be that long, then it works. If they're just padding it out to make it seem bigger and more epic, I don't have any need for it. Oh my God, I almost signed off without talking about these two things. I got a viewer out there called CRS, and he was talking to me on the Raise the Titanic video, and I was saying things like, you know, I love anything that sails, I love boats, I'm a geek for that kind of stuff. And I told him I was showing some of my books the next time I did a video. Well, here's a photograph of them. The books are on the first floor of the house. I'm on the second floor of the house. I didn't want to carry them upstairs, but there's a photograph of them, me with them, the stacks in the back of the Jane's fighting ships and the Titanic and her sister ships and all that. And that's only a chunk of it, believe it or not. I have a bunch of stuff on submarines and everything like that. I am a freak for anything that floats or submerges, and I don't really spend a lot of time reading novels and biographies and stuff. On occasion I will. I'm a tech manual kind of guy, so if you put down something in front of me and says, this is how a nuclear reactor works and a submarine, and this is how a steam-powered ship worked in 1908, and this, I'm going to sit there and read all that kind of stuff. I love all that kind of stuff. I'm a geek, whatever. It is what it is. Number 2. I've been having some thoughts. Tell me if this is too far off base or maybe I shouldn't do it. I don't know. It's up to you guys. On some of the special editions, not the movie reviews, but some of the special editions, I actually thought about touching on some of the great music or albums from the 70s, 60s, 80s, or something like that. So it'd be like movies. And then I every now and so often on a special edition say, hey, man, you guys want to go back and review this record, what that meant to the world, and if you liked it? I don't know if it'd be too much of a cross-pollinating the streams, taking something that's music and putting it on something that's basically a movie appreciation channel, but maybe sticking it in as a special edition. I don't know. If you guys think that's cool, let me know. If you don't, it's not really that big of a deal anyway. But, now that that is said, once and again, and as always, take care. Be good. Stay out of trouble. Be kind to a stranger. Be good to a friend. But above all else, never, ever, ever take any bullshit from anybody. Have a great holiday, by the way. Christmas, New Year's, whatever religion you go by, I don't really care. Be good, take care of each other. Be with your family, spend some time. See you soon.